Welcome to the Ever Celine podcast, the show that ignites your passion for leadership and empowers you to develop a culture of continuous improvement. I'm your host, Matt Sims, and in each episode, we bring you fascinating insights and invaluable tips from our incredible lineup of guests. What do they all have in common? They share an unwavering dedication to excellence and are the experts in driving engagement, improving metrics, and reducing costs.
The Ever So Lean podcast with Matt Sims. You know it makes sense.
Welcome back to the Ever So Lean podcast. New year, same pod. Now today we're diving into a topic that's becoming increasingly critical in both personal and professional arenas. It's adaptability. And who better to join us for this wonderful conversation than Mr. Nigel Richardson. Now, Nigel's got over 25 years of leadership experience under his belt, including stints in online retail, BPO, pharmaceutical, aviation, and more. As the managing director of Adapt and Exceed, Nigel combines process-driven approaches with psychological insights to help individuals and teams, and even entire organisations, not just survive, but thrive in the face of change. Nigel's also a certified AQ adaptability practitioner and a Lego serious play facilitator, bringing innovative and engaging methods to help clients refine strategies, develop leadership, and build resilience. In today's episode, we'll be talking about why adaptability is such a critical skill for success and how we can develop it both in individual and organisational levels. Nigel, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Matt. I've also brought with me my imposter syndrome because you run a fantastic podcast. I've listened to a few. You've had some amazing guests, and it's a pleasure and slightly intimidating to join that club. So I'm looking forward to it, and also slightly nervous, but ready to dive into a topic that is really close to my heart.
Don't be daft. You stand tall amongst everybody else. It's great to have you here, mate. Also, another really good thing is that it's a subject that I don't think we've really touched on before. And it's something I hear in circles quite a lot. You hear the word adaptability thrown around and people reference it. But I've never heard a podcast yet that actually goes into it and talks about what it actually is and how it works. And I think you're definitely the man to help us in this space.
It's certainly a new area of research. You know, the idea of bringing together various areas of psychology and social science into a single unified model of adaptability. It's relatively young and in its infancy. If you think about the investment that's happening still in the world around emotional intelligence as a concept and the value it can add to, personal and professional development. That concept was designed, back in 1995? And, here we are nearly 30 years later, and it's still, the research behind it, the science behind it is one thing, but the development conversations and value that exploring that concept has added and continues to add is a really interesting one. So to be at the sharp end and at the earliest phase of really bringing the science of adaptability as a single unified model to life, it's both exciting and a little bit daunting, because you're obviously kind of thinking, am I too early? Timing is everything. Are there going to be people in 30 years time who are incredibly successful driving and coaching adaptability, or am I at the right time? In the lean world, especially in Hoshin planning, we talk about, and I've been doing a lot of that in the last few years, we talk about kind of scary breakthrough goals, goals that require you to be different, not just better. And I think my exploration of adaptability over the last couple of years has really been, me pushing my own advice and actually, exploring some goals and development and capabilities for me that are different, but I do believe, complement, that vast world of lean and business change and transformation that we've both walked in for a while.
You're right. And so much of change is psychological as well. So much of it.
Yeah.
The success really hangs on how we manage people and how we understand people's emotions and their feelings and what they're going through. I I think there's been a real movement in recent times, and gone are the days where we think change is a bang, bang, bang process, get it done, and everyone has to adhere to it. It's my way or the highway type thing.
Yeah.
It's not like that now.
No.
Do you see what I mean? It's all about people, and respect for people is at the heart of it. And I think we now understand that.
But I think the environment that people are facing has changed. And I think it's a really interesting topic. I am going to challenge maybe some preconceived ideas around business change, right, in this session. I love doing a bit of that and provoking. But I think there is a really interesting question if you're a business change professional, which is, if you take communication out of what you do, what is left?
Great question.
And for me, that's what this is really surfacing. It's about creating a world where everyone has much easier access to being in a positive state about change, whatever that change is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how I'm communicated to, it doesn't matter what quality of change management I receive, I am just up for this. And there's some internal reasons why I'm up for this. There's some external reasons to do with the business about why I'm up for this, but it doesn't matter what the change is, I'm up for it. I was at a conference and someone was presenting on this, and I just kind of thought, two thoughts. Oh, blimey, someone's already figured it all out. And then the other part of me was like, well, look, someone's already done the science, done the work. Let's join this group. Let's get involved and let's really start exploring how it can complement rather than compete with the vast amount of effort that's going on getting people to adopt various methodologies, various operating or change principles, etc. So my theory's been for the last 4 or 5 years, there's something deeper.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty happy with what I've got now across the Lego and the AQ, that I have the tools to explore that with people.
Yeah, we should explain what that is really. For those that don't know, Serious Play is like adult Lego, and it's for teaching, and it's incredibly brilliant in every way. And I think I use Lego a lot for my sessions, and I think a lot of trainers and coaches out there use Lego as well. Do you think there's something in that when we're children, we're young, we're carefree, we're very innovative, there's no constraints, we've got great imagination, we play with Lego and we enjoy it? As an adult, when we deliver training using Lego, do you think there's a psychological piece there that takes us back to feeling that way, that helps us engage?
Do you know what I really do? I think what I like to ask people is, if you wanted to turn an instinct, a feeling, an idea, if you wanted to turn that into reality without words getting in the way, how creative could you truly be? So the whole premise of Lego Serious Play really relies on this principle of the head-hand line. You can think through your hands.
Yes, so true.
I turn up to this sort of thing having been through, lots of conferences, I've been on the receiving end. I've been beneficial of attending some very good training in my past. So I can walk into things a little bit skeptical, but actually the 4 days in Copenhagen that I spent, learning from the founders of it, was genuinely eye-opening to me and challenged a lot of my, I suppose, previous expectations of what good facilitation was. So I do genuinely believe that if you trust your hands and just start, thinking can become real in a metaphor. And I think the metaphor can have a meaning that is important and is powerful for you, even if you're struggling to find the words to explain it. And you can give people time to do that, and they will come round. So you will ask a question, does this part of the model have any significance to you? And quite often you'll hear the answer, well, to be honest, at the time, no. But now I think about it, it's this, and this. And, the room kind of goes, whoa. And I'd never thought of it that way before.
A proper golden moments.
But I think what I love about it the most is it's really hot on how you interact with each other during this time. We all know that meetings quite often are dominated by 20% of the people making 80% of the noise. And actually, the behaviors that you're coaching alongside the model in terms of how you ask questions. If you think about how much time do people have to put their thoughts on a post-it in a normal workshop, right? If you're giving people 5 times the amount of time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to build their individual model of what the future means to them, or they mean, or what their hopes and dreams are, or their view of the problems in the business, you take the power of those post-its and you just amp it up, 10 times as much. People care, and people really, giving people time to think about in a caring way what they actually think about something, I think is an underused facilitation tool. The answer is yes, if you want to edit that in later on.
No, you're good. I like the answer. The answer's good. I think it creates that inclusiveness, doesn't it? It allows people who perhaps wouldn't be able to get involved if it was a post-it note driven exercise, and it creates that environment.
100%.
And that's the key, because sometimes, the ones that are the quietest in the room have actually got the best ideas.
Yeah.
And they can be excluded, not through purpose-driven exclusion, but because they can be excluded because the loudest people in the room are the ones that get heard. It just happens that way.
I had a room of, I think, 35 people, small construction business, and there's a mixture of, senior people, and they're at the same table with the painter decorators, and they're talking about the future of the business, and they're doing it as equals. If you're facilitating Lego Serious Play in it well, there isn't really an opportunity to do anything but discuss it as equals. So yeah, I think there is that, the head to hand in terms of creativity, but then the interaction and the reviews and the sharing and, producing something you can all go with, etc. I think it all combines something, a really powerful facilitation tool.
Right, let's get stuck into a bit of your background then, and how you came about the adaptability world and what it means.
So my background education is psychology, degree and masters. I did a stint as a recruitment consultant. So I placed a lot of people to do with the millennium bug. So that puts a date around it. But I was very fortunate, really, to join GSK in pharma. I was there, I think, about 7 or 8 years. And it was really during that time, I was personally fortunate enough to sit in on some absolutely world-class, amazing Lean Six Sigma training. In my, about 2 years into my time at GSK, I became a Lean Six Sigma black belt.
Yeah.
I wanted an environment that was a bit more dynamic. You probably don't get much more dynamic than 120,000 people flowing through a terminal every day at Heathrow Airport. So I was there for 3 years, really looking at the aspects of passenger flow, which, is a continuous topic.
Yeah, I bet.
So I had a fantastic, a hugely disruptive time, just after the liquids crisis had kicked in.
Great timing.
If you go from an environment where you're in a batch manufacturing, secondary manufacturing environment, and you are a number of steps in the supply chain removed from the end customer, there's nothing more amazing than implementing a change in passenger flow and seeing it either work or not work within 3 minutes.
Wow.
It's amazing. I would encourage, anyone that's really passionate about, lean and flow, spend some time in a transport of people industry, because it really opens your eyes.
Was it addictive, like being so immediate? I can imagine it's really addictive.
Yeah. I just remember at the time someone saying, right, everyone needs to get down here because this is really working. And that was one of the senior leaders, just on the phone. Everyone get down here. This is really working. I spent some time actually then running a business, running a supply chain and customer relationship. And actually, this is probably the beginning of my adaptability story. So I ran the operational and commercial performance. I've been there 3 months. I'd come in with my historic facilitation style of, we're doing well, how can we be better? Let's go for excellence, all of those great things. And the reality was, it wasn't really going well. And actually, at the time, one of the senior leaders said, I've got to catch up with someone very senior at your customer. Would you like to listen in, get a bit of feedback? I was like, yeah, okay. And do you remember those Polycom phones?
Yeah, the triangle.
Yeah. All of us at a certain age have probably stared at one of those Polycom phones, and it's either made our day, week, or year, or it's given us some of the worst news we've ever been able to handle. So mine was pretty...
Did they know that you were listening?
No.
Oh, God.
No, well, they're going to find out if they listen to this. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, surprise.
So I kind of, the call connected, and I very quickly realised something was wrong. Is the customer leader said, "Listen, Nigel, it's not working. Got to get rid of him." And that was basically the tone of the 30 minutes was, and my boss at the time was very much, I think, fighting my corner. And you know what? To be fair to the customer, everything had got worse.
Right.
Everything had got worse. No matter what I thought about it, the reality was, operationally we were worse. Customer kind of satisfaction wise, we were worse. The projects weren't moving as well, etc. And I think that was where I kind of flicked the switch, which was now this kind of like, okay, I have a choice to make here. what I've done has not worked. And I either say to the leaders of this business, look, I am not for this role. This is not the fit for me. I thought it was, but it isn't. Or I take a fundamental, look in the mirror at everything I've done and how I've done everything, and I pivot. My reality was I was in much more of a turnaround situation than I thought I'd been. I'm very much naturally, if you think about the insights cover wheel, like a sunshine yellow kind of person, and it needed a red. It needed okay, can you do this for me? Yes. What time will you do it by? When will I get it? It needed closing the loop. So all of those behaviors were really things, whilst I knew of them, I had to do them every single day for 6 months. Some people were inspired and helped with the change. Some people weren't. And some people came through the change being dragged by the hair, kicking and screaming. But I think that's the reality. I think I've never forgotten that in whatever I've been doing since that time. That kind of empathy for the people that are dealing with the customer calls. I was on customer calls at 6 a.m. with Shanghai. I was on customer calls at 10:30 in the night with Reno, and they were all beating me up. But that was the real moment of clarity for me on my adaptability journey.
Yeah.
I was there for 3 years. We did a few kind of new deals and new negotiations and new digital sale and various other things, but none of them would have happened without that absolute bedrock foundation of us being able to make commitments and stick to them, and the painful conversations that had to happen, internally and externally to make sure that behavior existed.
It's difficult, but sometimes it's the best learning.
Huge learning for me. Again, I'd recommend anyone that really wants to improve their lean journey just to take a walk in the shoes of the people that, drive day-to-day performance or day-to-day customer relationships. And it's an absolute learning curve.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's the only way to get true empathy is to go out and do the role yourself to really understand what it's like.
The sweet spot for me has been more the Hoshin strategy, refinement, deployment, execution, rather than the kind of the base level bottom up lean stuff. I think having that focus has really opened my eyes a bit to the need for adaptability above and beyond. So adaptability, I started exploring about 2.5 years ago. I've been accredited, I think, for a couple of years now. And then Lego Serious Play, a similar thing where I just needed to drive my own breakthrough goals and invest in my own capability that drove me to be different rather than just better.
That period when you were struggling must have been really, really awkward, especially when you were listening on your boss's call, because your boss knows you're there, you know you're listening, he's having to listen and knows that you're listening. And all the time, they don't know that you're there. Yeah. I mean, it's just the most horrific thought. I've got secondary embarrassment sitting here just thinking about it.
I've got to say, Matt, it was brilliant. I think my boss at the time was brilliant. I won't name him to embarrass him, but he's progressed, and there's a clear reason why. He never had a filter. He was honest. You couldn't ask for more. Because if I hadn't been in that call, and if I hadn't heard the language being used, if I hadn't heard the tone and the emotion, I wouldn't have got the message.
Yeah, I can get that. That's a fair shout.
I would have carried on being me. It wouldn't have landed. So I am forever grateful that I had that opportunity. I'd like whoever I work for, I'd like to know more than I should. And that helps me make decisions. And obviously, the flip side of that is I can be very discreet. So no, you're right. It was a challenging situation, but it was
like a resuscitation, where they get the pads and they put them on and they jump start your heart. Yeah. It was kind of like that for your career, wasn't it?
I don't want to swear, but I'm going to. I think I say this to all the people I'm coaching. Any change needs a no shit moment. It needs an emotional reaction, and that was mine. And I think I could have been very aware of the need to improve and very aware of the need to do things differently, but I wouldn't have had the oh shit moment.
You're completely right. And, it's really funny you should say it. That oh shit moment, I had one just before Christmas. So I had to have some blood tests done as part of some medication that I was taking, and they check your cholesterol. Now, I'm 41. There's no history of anything like that in my family, so I should be okay. But I wasn't. My cholesterol was really high, really bad. And the doctor texts me, because it's the modern world now and it's the easiest way. So they text me, and she texts me and she said, your cholesterol's too high. You need to change your lifestyle and you need to start eating properly. That was like the 9th of December. Now, for the last 12 months, I've really let myself go. Yeah, I know I've done that. I sort of sit around working all day, 14 hours a day. I just eat crap and eat as much of it as I can because I'm travelling a lot, sort of live in service stations and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so about 9 months ago, I went to the health bus in this car park of a cafe, and they did these little pinprick tests, and the health bus person, who's a volunteer, like member of the public, just said to me, right, yeah, the tests come right back immediately. Your cholesterol's a little bit high, but not too bad. But I just ignored it and I carried on.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, but when the doctor told me, it was that oh shit moment. You know, you need to make fundamental changes to your behaviour. And I connected with that message so much more because it was like, this needs to change. And you know what? Since the 9th of December, I've eaten nothing but fish, salad and vegetables. I've eaten so well during this period, and I would never have done that without the doctor saying, Matt, you need to listen to this. So you're so right. In everyone's lives, it's those oh shit moments that really does make you deliver change.
I think the other thing, while we're skillfully avoiding the topic of adaptability, and I'm in this as well. This is brilliant. You know what you're just highlighting there. There's a little bit of a bugbear of mine, which is the value of having a clear, direct opinion. And I think in our industry, I don't know if it's because I've got older, my day rates increased, whatever it is. But I remember I used to be this almost like I'm managing the process. It's your business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, I think sometimes that helps, but I think sometimes it doesn't. And I think that there's a way of saying, hey, I'm with you and I'm invested in your success. So whilst I'm here facilitating you, I am going to have an opinion. You don't have to listen to it. Or you can listen to it and go, look, that's fine, but this is our business. It's our decision. That's fine. But I think there is a really important, subtle thing for us in our position around, how we leverage our authority and our experience to actually give people the clarity that they need that motivates them to change. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, completely. People need to be aware of all the facts, all the data, all of the perspectives to be able to make that decision. And if they make that decision against what we advise, then fair enough. But yeah, we've done our bit. We've made them aware of it, and we can sleep tonight.
But I suppose with issue, what you're saying is the doctor sent you a very clear, direct message, and if they could have done, they would have looked you in the eye and said, you need to change. They didn't just give you the facts; they gave you the story. You're in trouble.
Yeah, it's like the back signal.
It's my medical opinion that you're in trouble and that you need to do something about it, rather than just here's your results. And I think that's a really subtle but significant additional way we can add value in how we communicate that stuff.
Brilliant, really interesting. But back to the subject in hand then.
Yeah,
it's relevant. It is relevant. Let's go with what actually is adaptability. What is it?
If you look at adaptability in the dictionary, it will basically refer to your ability to respond to unforeseen environmental circumstances, internal circumstances, whatever it is. I think what interests me a lot is, you got to be careful whether you use the word adaptation or adaptation, right? So adaptation is Darwinism, right? So the market adapts, right? The challenge for us as individuals and businesses, the market only adapts through an adaptation model if some companies die and other companies survive and other companies are born. So that's not really the focus of our adaptability. We're focused much more on the adaptation side of things, which is a conscious shift, a conscious response. So the Marines talk about being the first to understand, the first to adapt and respond, and the first to overcome. So it really is that ability to understand where you're meant to be, understand where you are, understand the reality, and pivot when you need. And I think I'd elaborate that with 3 different levels as it relates to AQ. At an individual level, I think my take on it is resistance to change. So you've got, I suppose, a similar amount of war wounds to me in this lean world, and I'm sure a number of our listeners have. And if you think about resistance to change, I can simplify it into 3 levels. The first is, I don't like what you're doing. I don't like the change. The second is, if that doesn't work, then say, I don't like how you're doing it. And if those don't work, the final last resort is, I don't like you. Okay, they're generally the 3 layers of resistance that people will go through trying to avoid a change happening. Now, my theory from an adaptability point of view is People that are missing a high level of adaptability have a fourth very significant layer of resistance, and that is I'm not okay. I'm not okay with my place in the world of the future. I don't have faith in myself. I don't have belief that the change will be positive. I don't trust my environment or the people that I'm in. So I think, the first level is it's a very personal, internal mental model for how you view your future and the journey to get there. I think the second point for me level relates to teams. The Man United, I think Liverpool game, you think what a difference in performance that was, okay, compared to recently. But then you stop and think about, for that 90 minutes, all right, I think they had 7 minutes overtime, for that 97 minutes of execution, how much time was spent in a training environment to get that execution right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what their work hours are, but it's probably a good 5 or 6 days worth. So we quite often look at sports and ultra kind of high performing military operators as an example of high performance. And I think when it comes to teams, it's not necessarily a fair comparison because those people have the luxury of perfection through training, developing that kind of unconscious competence that just gives them the confidence that they need. So for everyone else in the working world, their reality is, especially at the moment, is like, I'm probably going to fail in front of my team. I'm probably going to get stuff wrong. How do I feel about that? Do I trust my team to let me do that or not? Will they pick me up if I fall down? Will they correct me if they see me going wrong? And will they listen to me if I've got an opinion? So I could be an incredibly adaptable individual, but if I'm in the wrong team, that's probably going to, make me suffer. And then finally, if you just stop and think about what does adaptability at the highest level of an organization mean? So my answer to that, and one of the questions I ask my clients when I'm working with them on the strategy side and the hosting side is, how well oiled is your acquisition engine? How good are you at buying and onboarding new companies? Because there's a theory out there that says the world of change is happening so fast that if you want to invest in new capability and doing something different, not just better, you're probably not going to build it yourself in time. So that whole kind of the build, borrow, buy framework, it's been reversed. It's now buy, borrow, build. So actually, if you're a senior executive of a business and you're listening to this call and you're wondering how adaptable are we as a company, you've got to be thinking about, well, when was the last time we bought someone? How long did it take us to get them effective? When was the last time we had a technological breakthrough? How long did it take us to get value from it? That's the ultimate expression of adaptability at an organizational level.
I think you broke it down really, really well. And I think everyone can sort of put themselves in situations that you were speaking about. I just get flashbacks of times where I've been in that environment, both as the person leading the change and as a person who's the recipient of a change. And it's really funny that human beings' nature, it does eventually come back to, do I like you? Because you're more likely to do something for someone, even if you don't believe in it, if you like the person. You see what I mean?
What's the biggest source of resistance to change in your organization at the moment, right? Is it a process issue? Or is it the fact that in all likelihood, your workforce are significantly lonelier than they were 5 years ago? The concept of adaptability, it opens up this inner ability to adopt change, this inner ability to hunt your future and actually be accountable, not just for who you are now, but who you are in the future and chase it. I think that unlocks much more meaningful conversations about how you are at work as an individual, how you are as a team, and how the organization creates the environment for that or doesn't create the environment for that.
So what's this AQ framework then? What is it and how does it help?
Basically, there's 3 buckets that this sits in. The first is ability. So I can't remember who I'm stealing this from, so sorry, but there is this world of, imagine your competencies or your capability, or you as a tree. And if you imagine the leaves are things that refresh every year, sometimes they fall off, sometimes they grow back differently, right? So things like, we've got to use this latest IT system or that IT system or whatever it is. Ability is much more, I think, the branches. Okay, so the branches move, change direction, depending on, you see, if you look at trees all over the place, you'll see trees that have their branches configured based on wind direction, based on the sunlight, based on a variety of other things. And you can see that they don't grow in straight lines. They do pivot, adapt, and change as they need to. So the metaphor for your adaptability abilities is that with time, focus, and attention, you can develop those. Okay, you can develop those on your own, or you could develop those with a coach. The next level of this model is your character, a load of dimensions that sit under character. And think of those as kind of the trunk or the roots. If you want to explore those, you're going to have to go to a much deeper level. They don't move as quickly. They don't shift with the seasons. Okay, so I'm not saying they can't be moved and they're immobile, but you can, with help, do some work on your character if you are more aware of it, and also if you're motivated to. There's another aspect of character, which is the whole preference versus skill. So some of those characteristics are much more your preferred style. It doesn't necessarily matter which side of the axis you are. It doesn't impact your ability, but it's important for you to understand your preference and the preferences of others in that space. And then finally, the environment. So, the tree needs sunlight, right? Needs water.
Yeah.
Needs minerals in the soil. If you take any of those things away, you could have the most adaptable person in the world. And if you put them in a toxic work environment with poor policies, poor structure, poor purpose, etc., they're probably not going to be able to adapt significantly. Their adaptation will probably be to leave. One of the most successful products on the planet, they missed out on years and years and years of revenue. That's 12 years of revenue that they missed.
That's bollocks.
People that have high resilience take joy in setback because they know that's where the magic happens. 12 years. The world shifted.
Bollocks, start again.
AI is a great example. It's a future state that can't be defined.
It's the yes-no game with Nigel Richardson.
My view of hope is, it's really your belief in the power of you.
Are you ready to elevate your team's ways of working? Are you seeking fresh insights and growth opportunities? Our experts will assess your team's practices, providing valuable insights for improvement and celebration. Reward and recognise your team with this certification tailored specifically for creating an improvement culture. The BQF Academy accreditation acknowledges your journey, outstanding outcomes, and future plans. Whether you utilise Lean, Six Sigma, project management, or continuous improvement techniques, this certification celebrates your incredible work and positive impact. Propel your team's performance to new heights with the BQF Team Excellence Culture certification. Visit www.bqf.org.uk today and let's celebrate your success together.
13-time Shingo Prize winner Dr. Jeffrey Leiker and Toyota Kata author Mike Rother have created the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata online course. This inexpensive, compact program is designed to transform your thinking and approach, making you a highly skilled learner and coach. Engage in deliberate practice to turbocharge your progress. You also get lifetime access to the materials, including all of the bonus interviews. Why pay up to 10 times the price elsewhere, listening to some consultant, when you can gain direct insights from the masters themselves? Skip the rest and go with the best. Join us today and embark on your journey to excellence. Just click on the link below to start your journey.
This is kind of what I like about this is environment matters, right? Your workplace matters. The company you work for matters. And not many psychometrics consider that. So being able to be clear on your environment is really, really important. Let's just dive into some of these quickly. So ability is broken down to 5 key components: grit, determination, mental flexibility, mindset, resilience, and unlearn. So grit is your commitment to long-term goals. So if the metaphor is the person running up the mountain, the act of running up the mountain isn't the type of grit we're thinking about. We can probably all think back to times where we've been incredibly gritty reacting to a situation. I think back to my time in that story I told you during the volcanic ash time.
Yeah, at the airport.
And the work that went on. And I'm sure there's a few people hopefully nodding and wincing at that experience if you ran a supply chain during that time. I was incredibly gritty, right? My grit scores, it's not great, I'll be honest. And actually, it's not about whether or not you can run up the mountain. It's about the commitment that you put into the training plan before the event. So it's your commitment to doing stuff today that makes your performance in the future better. A lot of what we do in our world is problem solving, right? And Hoshin and strategy is very much, it's the same, but the problems don't exist yet. So how do you motivate people to spend time on them because there's no pain? And this is very much the same thing, but at a deepest psychological level. You have to make good decisions today for your future health. How naturally good at that are you? How much thought and attention do you need to put into it? So that's grit. Mental flexibility is really your ability to hold competing perspectives, competing challenges in your head at once. So, I went into this role, I was accountable, and I wanted to make everything better for my client. And I was most perturbed to realize that I couldn't just do that. I also had to protect the profit of the business. So learning to become comfortable juggling those two, not always competing, because Lean's quite good at that, but quite often competing.
So that's difficult as well, really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindset really relates to your relationship with change. So if you think about this from a locus of control point of view, if you regard change as an external entity that you're receiving, have you had change that gives you good stuff or change that gives you bad stuff? So that if you've had change that gives you lots and lots of bad stuff, it's quite logical for you to think, well, yeah, my mindset's probably going to be quite low about change in the future. Resilience, a word a lot of people know, a lot of people understand, ability to bounce back. So after you've run up that mountain, are you one of those people, probably like me, that needs 2 months off and can't walk up the stairs for a week? Or are you one of those crazy people that actually gets up the next day and goes for one of those recovery runs? So yeah, your ability to bounce back. And people that have high resilience take joy in setbacks because they know that's where the magic happens. The entrepreneur knows that the setback will probably end up creating the product that changes the world, not the initial design. Jocko Willink, a man who both scares me and inspires me at the same time. I've seen a few of his clips and he kind of says, oh, there's been a problem. Good.
That's the Japanese culture as well.
Yeah. I'm not pretending to be an expert in resilience, but the world of resilience is definitely a rabbit hole that people can explore. Unlearn, a really interesting one. Unlearn. That's generally the one people have never heard of. So you don't have to share what it is yet, but let's have a bit of fun. I'll ask you a question. If you look back over your career, my hypothesis would be that there's probably 5 or 6 common go-to behaviors, styles, approaches that across all of them, there's a pattern. Doesn't matter whether I've done a lean thing or a Six Sigma thing, or if I've been in this company or that company. My go-to 5 or 6 core beliefs, behaviors, whatever I say, they're the things that have made me successful. Does that statement kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Good. Yeah. All right, cool. The hypothesis of Unlearn at the highest level would be that 1 or 2 of those things are the very things that are now holding you back.
Interesting. But why is that though? I feel like I'm going to a counselling session now. It's quite good. It's doubling up.
I think it's because the world's changed. That we haven't necessarily talked about the context of the world, but we're now in a world of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's exponential. We're going to get 100 years change in the next 10 years. It's the world is different. The game needs to be played differently. I remember seeing some information from, I don't know if you're connected to Nadia and the Reinvention Academy, but she had a trend graph of the Global Uncertainty Index. And it's really interesting, really, really interesting. This is by eyeballing the graph, not by running any run tests, right? But it sustains a relatively low level of uncertainty from about 1950 to 2002. And when you stop and think about that, you think, well, actually, that's the period of time where most management thinking and methodologies have emerged in this world of stability.
Yeah, it's interesting. But the world's changed a lot, hasn't it?
The world's shifted. There's no longer a linear relationship to cause and effect. It's exponential. Things that we thought were strong, COVID has highlighted, are now brittle. there is a lot more anxiety about the future than there was, for the very reason that it's uncertain, it's ambiguous. In all our training, as in whatever method we're doing, we were always taught identify the current state,
Yeah.
identify the future state,
Yeah.
identify how you're going to bridge the gaps and communicate it.
That's right.
AI is a great example. It's a future state that can't be defined because it's a capability to play with. It's not a process or a technology to use. Prior to AI, technology has been able to really force itself through its own change management by having such a rigorous standard work that there's only one way to do it. But the new wave of technology that's coming is much more ambiguous. So it's a bit like when I work with clients using adaptability for employee engagement problems. The reason isn't that those things weren't effective for you. It's not that you've got worse. It's that the world around you's shifted. For unlearn at the highest level, they're the two questions that I use with senior leaders, just to say, look, have a real inward look at your inner beliefs of you and how you bring value in whatever role you're in, and make sure that one or two of them aren't the things that are holding you back. And generally, when I ask that question, you see something click, and it's quite rewarding. So character, another 5 dimensions sit under character. The first is emotional range, so how you react to things. You can be, cool, calm, and collected, or you can be my heart's on my sleeve, or somewhere in the middle. Extroversion, introversion, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think what's interesting here is that people can quite often done something that says, oh yeah, I'm really, really extroverted, or I'm really, really introverted. And they might see something in the AQ results that looks a bit different. This is very much related to how people process change. So I'm incredibly extroverted, energized by being around others. But I do shift a little bit to the left if it's a disrupt. I want a little bit of time on my own just to kind of, hey, I need to process it. I need to have some one-to-one conversations, but I also need to be in the group. So there's a subtle but significant difference there. We then got hope, and hope is really powerful. Remember I talked about mental mindset, and your relationship with change as an external locus of control. Hope is really your relationship with change from an internal locus of control. My view of hope is it's really your belief in the power of you.
That's interesting. So that, I guess there's certain industries and certain roles where hope's higher than in other roles.
I did a little bit of research with military veterans, mainly Marines, sprinkling special forces, and their hope was incredibly high. And actually exploring that, there is a very kind of knowledgeable person talked about this concept of unconscious confidence, the belief that you have in you that can be created through challenging, great training and experience. That's generally something that's really important. And also believing in you is going to be really, really important if you think about whether you think about yourself and your future as a victim or as an agent of your own world. So hope is your desire to pursue those goals and go, I am going to go in that direction. I don't know what's over the horizon, but I have confidence in myself to find a way.
So is hope like faith to a certain degree? You believe in what you're doing. You don't know what it's going to be, but you know that you're going in the right direction. Do you know what I mean?
When you say the word faith, it implies you're believing in something else other than you. And other coaches may subtly, agree, disagree. My clarification is hope is your belief in you. I'm going that way.
Okay, let's go that way.
I don't know what we're going to find, but we'll be all right because I've done this before. I've lived with ambiguity. I've lived with uncertainty. I've been through challenges, Motivational style, play to protect versus play to win. So, really interesting if you're a lean person and you're preparing a proposal and it's going towards your senior leaders, are you playing the fear, uncertainty, and doubt quality card and hoping that everyone in the room has a play to protect mindset? Or are there people out there that are really thinking, well, I want aspirational step change performance from this. I want to see how this links to commercial growth. I want to see the link to us giving increased shareholder value next year. It can be really interesting to think about where you are on that motivational style. Are you motivating yourself to adapt because you are in this pursuit of an abundant future? Or are you really only pressing the adapt button when you receive a similar message to me over the phone? I probably had information in front of me 3 months up to that point that what I was doing wasn't working. But it was only really when that call came in that probably told me my job was at stake, that the play to protect kicked in for me and I really went into action. And then finally, thinking styles, detail, big picture. That's not new, so I'll move on from that.
Making sense so far. What's the next one?
So they're the trunk and the roots. Environment, company support. So has the company got my back? Do my values and my principles and my purpose align with the company's? I dived into some of the Gen Z research, and it's clear that there's a whole pool of talent making purpose-based decisions on their career. Getting a handle on that and testing that with people, making sure people feel more than just a number is massively important.
I think COVID as well has really drawn focus to that environment piece, hasn't it? People think differently about the environment they work in now than they did before.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think also it's almost like the environment that you're in a face-to-face office was probably much more emergent and much more self-managing. Whereas I think, I don't know about you, but if I'm on my own for too long, my voices are, let's just say, more skeptical and critical than optimistic and hopeful. I'm probably a reasonably healthy member of the population. So I suspect there's a large population of the workforce that are the same. And I know that if I spent a day with people, I feel better now. I feel better. I feel better about the people themselves because I've just remembered, oh yeah, they're really nice people. What was going on in my head? So I think we do need to think about designing that in with more purpose and more focus for the future. Emotional health. Are you thriving at work? Do you associate work with having positive moments? Or do you associate work with, just being under a world of negative moments that you're trying to cope with? Team support, we talked briefly about that. Has my team got my back? Can I practice in public?
Yeah.
If I have an opinion, will it be listened to and valued?
Yeah.
Those sort of things. Work environment, I told a few people the Post-it story. It took 12 years for 3M to launch the Post-it note.
12 years?
12 years.
Whoa, that is
12
crazy.
years.
And they still fall off the wall after a couple of seconds.
One of the most successful products on the planet. They missed out on years and years and years of revenue. That's 12 years of revenue that they missed at the beginning of the cycle when the world was nowhere near digital. We're now digital now. So wonderful window's gone.
You snooze, you lose.
Even after they had a concept that they thought could work, it took another 5 years for them to launch.
Madness.
So, and they had one failed launch where they didn't really commit. So that ability for a business to self-disrupt, there's a new breakthrough. That's the fundamental of work environment at the exec level. And then finally, work stress. So if you want to be adaptable, you have to have space to try new things. If you're already working, 12, 14-hour days, just keeping afloat, which I know a lot of people are, that doesn't leave you any time to adapt. It doesn't leave you any time to be in a space where you can think about your future and think hard. So there's some other computations in the background that relate to other indices, but I think they're, basic 3 dimensions with the sub-dimensions under each. What I like about them is it lets you facilitate a really balanced conversation, which is, okay, abilities. How are you going to help yourself? Character. What have you learned about yourself and learned about others that makes you more effective interacting? And then finally, environment. What challenges are in place that aren't in your gift to fix that we need to try and look at organisationally? Yeah.
Do you know what? And I'm giving someone a really good idea here, but we could create an adaptability top trumps. Can you imagine with all of these different headers? So you've got your environmental, you've got all these different things, your health, and you've got numbers against it. And you can have everyone in your organisation, you could give a score, and then you can play against each other.
Oh my Lord.
It's top trumps.
What, with real, I thought you were going to use like...
No, I mean actually in your organisation. So you got the VP. You go, oh, he's a.
You mean actual
you can have an 8
people?
for that or a 10 for that.
Oh,
it'd be brilliant.
Mate.
Yeah. You go against each other. It'd be so good.
Oh, I've got Matt. I better go for grit.
Yeah.
I can't decide in my head as an immediate reaction whether using real people in your client organisation is genius or incredibly psychologically damaging. I'm not sure which way to go on that, Matt. But
we should put it to the public vote. Let the people decide.
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
Going back to your footballer analogy from earlier, right? You could have a striker, say, who's absolutely thriving at their current club, right? Smashing it, scoring goals for fun, non-stop, absolute superstar. Then they go to another club and it just doesn't happen. They're a different player. They just cannot find the goal. Even with a compass, they couldn't find it. awful, right? Awful.
Yeah.
But they haven't suddenly become a poor player or talentless player. Surely it's the environment they're in is different.
Yeah.
What's happened in that environment? Are all the conditions the same? Are they not the same? Is the competition they're playing in, is that different? There's so much within that as an outsider watching football, you don't think about. You just think they used to score loads of goals, now they don't. They're rubbish.
Yeah. I want to agree with you, but flip that example on its head, because I can't remember all the details, right? But I think Thierry Henry was in midfield or a winger.
Yeah, that's right. Left winger, left wing.
And he came to Arsenal, and Arsene Wenger said, "I'm going to make you a striker." I think Harry Kane was he a defender?
Yeah, he was. Chris Sutton too was another one. He was a central defender who went to be a striker.
And Jude Bellingham, 22, because he could play all midfield positions wherever he wanted. I think Gareth Bale is another one, I think, who changed positions quite,
Yeah, there's loads of them, isn't there? Loads.
I do a bit of football coaching, or I used to. And there's a lot of it in grassroots coaching around trying not to push positions too early, because kids just change their mind, they develop, and, that is a whole different topic. But it is a really interesting example of where incredibly high performing people can't adapt if they go to a different team or if a new manager comes in, or there are incredibly high performing people that can adapt and they consciously change position and work on their game.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
If you're a senior leader, you should be thinking about that. You should be thinking about, AI is coming, that the future is coming, and the need to reskill a percentage of the workforce is already pretty critical. So as a leader, knowing these people, I'm going to position them with their strength. These people, they're high performers, but I need to move them from midfield to striker, and I need to talk to them about that, and I need to set the wheels in motion. It's going to be a skill that a lot of leaders need over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's senior leadership in a nutshell, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking about the longevity of what's happening. And you know what? What's interesting here is when you're in there at the coalface and you're trying to deliver change, it's very easy to forget that not everybody who works within that organisation is career driven. Some people are there just for the 9 to 5 and pay the bills. They're not interested in making the company better, moving up the ladder, getting a pay rise. They just want to go in and do their job and then go home and forget about it.
Yeah. I touched on this deliberately when I was talking through the model. Your relationship with change has to involve some personal accountability. It has to involve you exploring it yourself. And I think there is such an importance on personal accountability. There's lots of people writing very slick carousels on LinkedIn, getting lots of clicks on management's bad, leadership's good. Here's some examples of micromanagement. And it's like, but if the person's not performing, they are entirely acceptable management behaviors.
Yeah, as a process.
Management's almost becoming a dirty word. And I worry about that. And I want to champion it.
Yes, it was a completely different role, isn't it? And
Yeah.
people don't seem to understand that. There's a lot of confusion. They think a manager is not a leader and a leader is not a manager in terms of that person's capability.
Yeah, I think there should be a lot more managers in the world, and people saying, I am a manager and I'm proud. There's a lot of people out there saying they're a leader.
Yeah, you're right. And most leaders begun their careers as managers throughout their development.
Exactly.
It's something people have done.
Yeah.
Right, so before I put you to the test in the yes-no game, what's your focus for this year, Nigel? It's early 2025, so we've got the whole year ahead of us. What's your focus?
I suppose I'm definitely focused on grit. I'm trying to become much more mindful. I talk to clients about how much time do you spend working in the business and how much time do you spend working on the business. In the business, the planning horizons at the end of your nose is this next week's customer visits, whatever else. If on the business is, okay, our multi-year capability development to achieve our breakthrough performance. And what I'm doing personally on that is, rather than being like an independent consultant surviving, it's kind of like, what do I need to say yes to and no to? And how do I need to manage my time and my attention to be thriving in the future? And what does that mean in terms of the goals? And what does that mean in terms of, if I look at my diary for the week, and some of it is immediate fulfillment and some of it is planting seeds for the future, either professionally or for my health, I think being much more mindful about my split between being in my life and working on my life, I think is a really useful thing to think about. The other one for me is from an unlearned point of view. I feel like I've probably evolved this persona of being this battle-scarred, pragmatic operational and commercial leader. I'm definitely forcing myself to challenge that as an identity. I see a lot of people in the world pursuing more of an abundant lifestyle and being much more positively framed in what they're doing and why. Problem solving as a focus versus future hunting. The negative versus positive connotations of those things. It's not a very clear answer, but I'm definitely working on those two for me a lot.
And what would you recommend to those listening?
So I would very much recommend that people start with themselves and think about, am I committed to effort now for my future? Because any form of strategy, whether it's yourself, your business, your team, whatever the planning horizon, whether it's the next 3 months, 3 to 5 years, 10 years plus, you're ultimately negotiating with your future self. And then the other perspective, I think from a business perspective, again, not in the methodology detail, but at the highest level, I think what I would do is I'd encourage people to explore. There's some research called Beyond the Horizon, which has looked at a manifesto for long-term growth. And it created something called the Sustainable Growth Index. So the top 100 companies that have driven a greater than 10% CAGR over the last 15 years, which if you think about that in real terms is probably more than doubled twice, I think, by my rough maths. They are very clear on the 4 key components of driving sustainable growth at an organizational level. The first is having a future focus. So like I said, personally, protecting time to think about the future. Another source of inspiration for that might be Dory Clark's the Long Game and her TED Talk. The second is really investing in developing your adaptability. It's probably no surprise that I was going to say that somewhere. Creating a workforce that's more ready to receive and adopt any change, regardless of the change it is. Retaining your customer centricity is absolutely vital. And then the final thing that really draws it all together that we've touched on, which their research suggests is even more impactful, is the purpose. So the purpose provides that critical identity that lets anyone in the business who is navigating change, working out what the right thing to do, etc., is, in the absence of process, they can rely on their purpose. And I think that's really powerful. And they are, I think, the 4 things that I'd encourage people to look at.
Brilliant. You've heard it from the man himself. Nigel says, focus on yourself. It's January. It's time for those goals for this year. Focus on yourself. Right. It's now time, Nigel, to put you to the test with the yes-no game.
Oh, I've just got delivery at the doormat. Sorry.
Charming. He comes on the show and he calls me a doormat. Right. So the way this works is there'll be 60 seconds on the clock. And all you got to do is not say yes or no, or a variance of yes or no, which is or something like that. I'm going to do my best to catch you out. So I'm going to fire questions at you quick and fast, and I'll try and trip you up along the way. Just to make it a little bit harder, there'll be some intense music playing in the background that'll add some pressure. If you hear the gong, that means you are out. No arguments. No. If you hear loads of cheering, that means you did it. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Right, here we go. It's the yes-no game. It's Nigel's time. First of 2025. Can he beat the GOG? Do you have a hobby that helps you relax after a long day?
I have a number of hobbies that help me relax. They all relate to going downhill with gravity quickly.
Do you mean quickly as in really, really fast?
Really, really fast. On a mountain bike, in a kayak, on a snowboard.
Have you ever fallen off?
I have fallen off many times and have a few broken bones as a result.
Oh no, too dangerous for me. I prefer safe sports like poker and snooker. Have you ever picked up a new hobby just because a friend recommended doing it?
I picked up football, actually, because my son started doing it. I was never into it as a kid, but my son said, this is the thing I want to do. This is the thing I want to commit to. And I thought, well, I'm going to be at the touchline every day anyway, every week anyway. I might as well become a coach.
Is he stuck with it?
He has stuck with it, but he's having a bit of a,
Yes, you did it! Smashed it. What a start to the year. Oh, you did so well. It's so annoying. I was waiting to come in with my trusty... What did you just say? Did you just say...
I've heard you use that before. I was ready.
It's a good one because it gets people every single time because they're not expecting it. It's just like, cool, come round the back and catch you out. Well, that's the benchmark. You've set the benchmark for the year already.
Awesome.
And this one's not a yes/no question. Where can people go to get in contact with you or learn more about the things that you're doing?
So I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm not, from a grit point of view, I'm not as active and consistent as I'd like to be, and that's an area of improvement for me for this year. But a LinkedIn message works very well. You'll spot the chameleon in the logo. There's me with a big red background, so just search for Nigel Richardson. You'll find me. I've got a website, www.adaptandexceed.com, and that hopefully just outlines how this Hoshin breakthrough strategy world, disruptive Lego serious play facilitation, and the development of adaptability as a competence can really kind of join up into something really powerful.
Thank you, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it, Matt.
So, some key takeaways from today's discussion with Nigel. Adaptability is a cornerstone of effective leadership, especially in today's really complex and uncertain surroundings. Leaders must respond effectively to unforeseen circumstances, fostering a culture that values experimentation and innovation. This requires clear and direct communication to motivate change, empathy for those facing challenges, and a deep understanding of emotional intelligence. Hope and belief in one's abilities are powerful drivers of adaptability, helping individuals and organisations navigate change with confidence. Organisations really do thrive when they consistently embrace adaptability, both in responding to immediate changes and surviving long-term market shifts. This involves creating supportive environments that enhance employee engagement and leverage tools like Lego Serious Play to encourage creativity and collaboration. Team dynamics and individual strengths also play pivotal roles in fostering resilience, while recognising not all employees are motivated by career advancement and pay rises. Resistance to change often stems from dislike, misunderstanding, or personal insecurity. As leaders, we must address these barriers by building trust and accountability. The AQ framework that Nigel spoke about, comprising ability, character, and environment, offers a structured approach to enhancing adaptability, emphasising the importance of acquiring and integrating new capabilities. Good management is so essential but often undervalued. Effective managers recognise and nurture individual strengths, providing space and time for growth and learning. Purpose, both personal and organisational, serves as a guiding light for decision making and fosters meaningful conversations about adaptability and performance. Ultimately, adaptability is not just about being better, but about being different. Leaders and organisations that embrace this mindset can turn challenges into opportunities, building resilience and thriving in today's massively changing landscape. That brings us to an end of this episode of the Everceline podcast. Thanks so much to Nigel for joining us today and taking us inside the world of adaptability. I, for one, am much clearer on what it is and how to use it to add value to me and my organisation. If you enjoyed today's episode and want more, be sure to subscribe and follow the Everceline podcast on your preferred platform or visit everceline.com. Whilst there, you can catch up on any missed episodes and explore the range of services we offer, including our British Quality Foundation accredited programs, leadership coaching, lean excellence consultancy, and keynote speaking opportunities. Taking a moment to like and review the Everceline podcast on your listening platform of choice would mean the world to me. Your reviews are invaluable and I genuinely appreciate each and every one. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode. And don't forget, Ever So Lean. You know it makes sense. The Everceline podcast is researched, produced and recorded by Matt Sims. Visit everceline.com to find out more.